and I'll admit everyone.
Great. Right. Here we all are. Are we ready to go, Maria?
Yes.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. Well, if it is morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are in the world, it's 11 o'clock in the morning here in the UK. A very warm welcome to this session dedicated to understanding the application process for the Ertegun Scholarship Programme in the Humanities. My name is Jonathan Cross. I'm the director of the Ertegun Programme and senior scholar in residence. And in my spare time, I'm also professor of musicology in the University of Oxford. And we have a splendid panel of people arrayed before you to talk to you today. Sadly, one of them is ill, who was supposed to be with us. But we have two of our current scholars, and we're expecting a third to join us very shortly from the US. And we also have with us Maria Kouroumali, who is the administrator of the program. So Maria, would you like to introduce yourself? And then Ximena and Faisal will also say a little about themselves.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Maria. I'm the administrator of the program. And before I became an academic administrator, I was an academic in the field of Byzantine studies at Oxford as a graduate student. So I'm very familiar with the university.
Thank you. And then Ximena, would you like to tell us who you are and where you're from and what you're doing here in Oxford?
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Ximena Echevarría. I am an MPhil student in Linguistics, Phonetics, and Philology here at the University of Oxford. And I'm also a current, Ertegun Scholar as well.
Thank you. And Faisal?
Hello, everyone. I am Faisal. I come from Kashmir, and I'm pursuing a master's in comparative literature and critical translation.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And we may well be joined by another scholar shortly as the morning unfolds. So what we're going to do this morning, we have up to an hour. I will shortly give an overview of the program, tell you a little bit more about what we do here on the Ertegun program. Then I shall hand over to Maria, who will walk you through in some detail the intricacies of the application process. And then we'll go back to the current scholars who will say something about, well, their experiences of applying to the Ertegun program. And also, I hope, will tell you a little bit about what it's been like during their first term here in Ertegun House. And then after that, we'll take your questions. So please do send, we won't be able to see or hear you, but please send your questions in via the Q&A box, and we will do our best to answer them all. Just to note that this session is being recorded, and that once it's over, it will be placed on the Ertegun program YouTube channel. So you can watch it again or tell your friends about it. And you can also find further details about the program via our social media channels and on the Ertegun program web pages. Okay, so just a very little bit of history. The Ertegun program was launched in the University of Oxford in 2012, so 12 years ago, in fact, thanks to the generosity of Ahmet and Mika Ertegun. Ahmet was the co-founder of one of the world's great record labels, Atlantic Records. I'm sure you've come across them. They supported such artists, still do, as Aretha Franklin, Led Zeppelin, Ed Sheeran. Mika was a world-renowned interior designer. So Mr. Ertegun died in 2007 before the program began, but Mrs. Ertegun remained our patron and was very dedicated to the program right up until her death 2 years ago in December 2023. She died in New York at the age of 97. She was an extraordinary, creative, generous woman who was not only a distinguished artist in her own right, but whose vision for the future of the humanities resulted in the Ertegun program, which has already benefited getting on for 2,000 alumni who are now doing further study or working in all sorts of domains across the world. And the program will continue to help to give others such opportunities in perpetuity. So the Ertegun programme has around 20 students on the programme in each year from across the humanities, all the humanities subjects and its interdisciplinary programmes, and students from around the world reading for masters and doctoral degrees. And though I say there are 20 students in resident at one time, the community is larger than that, in that we also welcome what we call resident alumni. That is, students who've benefited from an Ertegun scholarship but who remain in Oxford to pursue other studies, and they also have a place in the house. Scholars are fully funded, their fees are paid, they get a living stipend, and we have this fabulous dedicated house on St Giles in the centre of Oxford in which to work. We all work here, but we also, I'll say a bit more in a moment about the rich academic and cultural programme that's organised for scholars. The house itself was redesigned, refurbished to the highest standards by Mrs. Ertegun herself, including her own design of a chandelier that stands at the top of the staircase, which the scholars go up every day to reach their offices. And in those offices, each scholar has their own desk. You would not believe how valuable a resource that is in Oxford, where everybody else is scrabbling for desk space. And while scholars' teaching happens in their home faculties, and they all also have a college identity, I would say, they will probably tell you this themselves, that for the most part, their primary identity during their time in Oxford is here in Ertegun House. So the academic programme includes a weekly work in progress seminar. This takes place every Wednesday. Compulsory attendance, sandwiches are provided, where all scholars and resident alumni are present. And each week, one of the scholars will give a presentation on their work, followed by 30 minutes discussion. It really is at the heart of what we do. We also organise a series of other lectures by visiting speakers who address very broadly questions of the value of the humanities in the world. Today, our speaker in the Humanities Future series, just to give you an example, is Professor Rana Mitter, now professor at Harvard, who was at Oxford. He is an eminent historian, a China specialist, and will be talking to us about his work. But we also organise career talks, support workshops. Next term, we're welcoming one of our alumni who is working in journalism to give you an idea of life beyond academia. We've run a workshop recently on preparing for exams and submissions, for example. But then we also run a cultural enrichment programme, which includes all sorts of visits together to concerts, plays, exhibitions, operas, going to other cities in the UK. Last year, for instance, we also welcomed some Hindustani musicians to the house to play and share their music with us. Earlier this term, we all went on a trip to London. And well, we ate there. We like eating a lot at Ertegun House, but we also went to a performance at the National Theatre. And then there are student-led events that are taking place all the time: film nights, reading groups, and a range of celebrations of our rich and varied cultural traditions, including Thanksgiving, Christmas, the Persian New Year, Hanukkah, the Day of the Dead, and much else besides. So I think the important thing I want to emphasize is that it's a wonderful community, a community that embodies both intellectual and global cooperation. The scholars here support each other in extraordinary ways, which means not only they settle in to the intense Oxford life very quickly, but they also learn from each other. The discussion that happens at the Wednesday seminar echoes out throughout the week in the kitchen and in other spaces within Ertegun House, so that actually their own work is enriched by these kinds of extraordinary encounters with other students, not just in their own subject, but across disciplines in the humanities. It is very much an interdisciplinary programme. So that's all I want to say for the moment. As I said before, there's a lot more information on the website, and you can find us variously on X, Blue Sky, Instagram, LinkedIn, and other places too. I'm sure that I've forgotten. Facebook, probably. So I'm now going to hand over to Maria, who is going to walk you through the whole application process. Thank you very much, Maria.
Thank you, Jonathan. I just want to say before I start, Muni has joined us as well from the US. So if I can ask her to introduce herself before I start. She is our third scholar who is going to participate today. Muni, can you hear me?
It takes a little time for the electronic waves to cross the Atlantic. Oh, here she is.
I don't know if she can hear us though. Well, I won't put her in the spotlight, as it were. I'll start and then she will introduce herself when we get there. Yeah. Because she may be having some issues joining. So I will hopefully share my screen correctly in a minute. Should be able to. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep, we can see that.
Okay, great. So applying to the scholarship. Now, the question I'm often asked, most frequent questions are eligibility. So I just wanted to say that and make clear that we do list the courses that are eligible on our website, but sometimes I do get questions about various branches, especially in faculties like history, who have many strands in their masters. All of those are eligible. The only thing that wouldn't be eligible is anything that is part-time, even if it is administered by the faculties of the humanities. We only accept applications from those intending to pursue full-time graduate courses. But that does cover every faculty in the humanities division and all the interdisciplinary courses as well, which are administered directly by the division. There are a small number of courses from the social sciences, such as classical archaeology, which are jointly administered by the humanities division as well, classical archaeology being co-jointly administered by the School of Archaeology and Classics faculty. Those are eligible and they are listed on our website. Of course, if in doubt, you can always reach out to me, but that should save people a lot of trouble because I often get queries from people from the physical sciences or medical sciences asking, because the course and research content, unfortunately, are not relevant if the degree itself is not administered by the humanities faculties or the division, the humanities division, or is not one of the exceptional social sciences division, it will not be relevant whatever, even if you are doing a humanities research content in the sciences, it won't be eligible to apply. And of course, any current graduate students in Oxford, if they've already started the course, they cannot apply for funding for a further year, second or third or further years. You have to be starting a new graduate full-time course at Oxford. The Ertegun Scholarship, Jonathan mentioned quite a bit about what life in the community is like and the various benefits. But I wanted to say what it covers and what it doesn't cover. It covers all course fees. This includes your college fee as well as the university fee. It offers a maintenance stipend for each year that you are an Ertegun Scholar. So if you've been accepted to a DPhil, it will be 3 years. If you've been accepted to a 2-year master's, it will be 2 years. And obviously, if it's a 1-year master, just the 1 year. You can see the annual stipend for this year is £20,780. Next year it will go up a little bit according to inflation. And then it gives you access, as Jonathan said, to the Ertegun House. It's great community. It's fabulous program of events, if I do say so myself, and a designated desk for the duration of your course. And I cannot emphasize how much that is a major resource at the University of Oxford, especially for humanities graduates. What is not covered, travel flights, visa and immigration health surcharge costs, any accommodation and living expenses, research expenses, and any college costs which are not related to the course fees. And you cannot hold the Ertegun Scholarship in conjunction with any other full scholarship award, but smaller awards are fine. So the timeline for applications. Most of the humanities faculties will have the early January deadline for research and taught full-time graduate courses. That is 7th of January, 2026. And then some of the jointly administered courses in the social sciences division with the humanities have a later deadline in January, which is the 27th of January. As long as you've submitted your application to Oxford with your Ertegun supporting statement, and remember to tick the box and upload your statement, within the respective deadline for your course, you will be considered by the faculties for the Ertegun Scholarship. What happens after you submit? Obviously, your application goes to the faculties first, and then the faculties are the ones who select the original long list of candidates to put forward to the Ertegun Selection Committee. So you will be interviewed, you will receive a call from the faculties either in late February, early March to be interviewed for the Ertegun Scholarship. We ourselves will contact the long-listed candidates that we have received from the faculties. We hope to be able to do so in late February, early March. We are dependent on receiving those names from the faculties, but we will contact you to ask you to send us a CV directly, because the Oxford application form collects some CV information, but you're no longer required to submit a CV. We, however, do require a CV. We do not care what format it is. I will explain all of this in the email to the long-listed candidates, but we do need to receive a CV, so keep that in mind. Then we will have our selection. The Ertegun Selection Committee will meet in sort of certainly before mid-March, and we will then send offers to the successful applicants. And obviously, if somebody withdraws, we have a short list of our own, a reserve list, and we will make any other offers end of March or early April. If you have not heard from us by early April, unfortunately, you haven't been successful. There is no way we can contact everyone. The program receives over 1,600 applications every year. It would be impossible for me to contact everyone. However, we will let the long-listed unsuccessful candidates know. They will receive an email from me. So at least you won't be left hanging for those of you who do end up on the long list. So the application process, pretty straightforward. You submit with your Oxford graduate application. You need to tick a box that indicates that you're applying to the Ertegun Graduate Scholarship, and then you need to upload the Ertegun supporting statement in PDF format. It is available in Word format on our website. You download it, you complete it, and then you save it as a PDF document, which you then upload. The form as it stands has a summary of research, asks you to submit a summary of your own research, and then 3 questions. I'll explain the questions and the summary of research in more detail further on. And you can find all this information on our website. Many times people tell me they can't find the form. This is probably because they're joining, they're trying to access it from their phone, and sometimes phones have issues with downloading documents. If you go to a computer though, a laptop or desktop, you should be able to download the Word document. So answering the supporting statement, which is the main point of your application to Ertegun. The first thing you'll be asked is, please provide a summary of the research you intend to pursue as part of your degree, and that in no more than 300 words. What you need to do is make sure that you have presented your research in a way that non-specialists can understand, because your application will be seen, of course, by your faculty, but the Ertegun supporting statement will also be seen by non-specialists, both within the faculty and outside of it, and they need to be able, the clearer you are, the better your chances of people understanding the importance of your research. You do not need to worry if your research focus or content will change once you're in Oxford. You won't have to give an account to anyone if that happens. You need to just present a very concise and clear and specific summary of the research that you intend to pursue at this stage and that you have mentioned in your Oxford application. The first question after that is, please explain how your current study and career plans will advance the mission of the Ertegun Scholarship Programme. And that is 500 words maximum. As you can see, I've put the mission statement, which is also reproduced on the form itself. You need to mention why you're applying, both to Oxford and the Ertegun programme in particular. This is the point where you need to focus on your own background, your own experiences, your own motivations, your own aspirations. Basically highlight what makes this makes you unique, and why you want to come to Oxford and be part of the Ertegun community. And you can refer to any specifics of previous or current or even future study or work experience, and obviously summarize any research or study that you referred to in a way that non-specialists will understand. And being specific is always helpful. Being vague and abstract doesn't resonate well with members of the Ertegun Selection Committee, because anybody can be vague. So don't use ChatGPT. It won't be able to give that unique flavor. The second question, an aim of the Ertegun Scholarship Programme is that each scholar will contribute intellectually to their country of origin and act as an ambassador there for the humanities. How will you further this aim? And that's a maximum of 500 words. What you need to do is talk about how you will contribute to life at Oxford and beyond. You can describe any future plans you may have in relation to your country of origin, but I do want to clarify that it doesn't mean we expect you to return to your country of origin directly after you complete your degree. You may be working elsewhere, but many people often think about how they would like to act as ambassadors for the humanities for their particular home country, whether that's the UK or anywhere else in the world. And of course, if you have already joined or wish to join or create any particular projects or societies or collaborations, events, communities, whatever that may be, this is the time to mention them, and always be specific. The final third question is, after having reviewed the Ertegun House website, how would you contribute to the Ertegun House community during your time in Oxford? And that's a maximum of 300 words. Now, our website has quite a few reports written by our various scholars from years past to the current generation, talking about the various events that Jonathan mentioned, and from the perspective of those who participated in them. Other resources, of course, can also be our social media channels, where we often post a lot of photos or little reels of what we've experienced during the various events. So this will give you an idea of what happens, and thinking of those things, you should then try to imagine yourself as part of the life of the house and how you would go about involving yourself. So any ideas about events you could propose, other suggestions about life in the house? Of course, you can highlight your own personality through the various events and ideas you have contributed to your own current community or work or study environment. And do your research and be as specific as possible. 300 words is not a lot, but it pays to actually have done some research here. So the general advice, to recap everything I've said, as I've said, the long list of candidates is chosen by the faculties. You should, of course, make sure that your Oxford Graduate application will allow you to enter the university, so it should be a priority. But the Ertegun supporting statement is very important to the Ertegun Selection Committee, who does not see your entire application. They will only see your CV, your Ertegun supporting statement, and will have a summary of the interview, so an interview record form after you've been interviewed by the faculty. So it's important to make sure that any key aspects of the Oxford Graduate application seep into the Ertegun supporting statement. You do need to allow enough time to write both the Oxford research proposal, which is the main focus, of course, of your Oxford application, and the Ertegun supporting statement. And I would advise people to brainstorm with friends, select which of your previous experience are most relevant to the application, both to the Oxford one and to the Ertegun supporting statements. Ask anybody you can think of advice. Non-specialists are particularly helpful here, especially previous tutors, supervisors, peers that you have. Find someone or many someones to proofread your application supporting statement, and make sure you submit in good time. So be concise and specific. I can't stress that enough. Both 300 and 500 words will be over before you know it. So if you've wasted a bit being vague and abstract, that's not going to go down well. But again, always think that you are the center. You're the one showcasing yourself. You need to make your passion and your motivations and your own goals come through as clear as possible in your applications. And of course, our scholars, the ones who will speak now, but also anybody in our community, are always happy to be connected to prospective applicants. So they'll speak a little bit more about that, and people can reach out to me and I will connect you to anyone you're interested in. So please submit any questions that you have in the Q&A section, and yeah, good luck.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, Maria. Comprehensive and clear as always. So without further ado, I saw Mooney on the screen there a moment ago, now disappeared from my screen. Are you still there, Mooney? It would be very nice just to hear from you and hear you introduce yourself. But maybe we've lost you. Oh dear.
Hi, sorry, I am fresh off a flight to Georgia from the UK, and I was experiencing technical issues, so that's always fun too.
That's okay. Well, you're probably in some strange mid-Atlantic time zone, but
it's for sure.
It's great to have you with us anyway. Do you just want to introduce yourself and tell us where you are at the moment and what course you're on?
Yeah, so hi, my name is Mooney. I'm doing the MSc in Women's Gender Sexuality Studies. I'm originally from Metro Atlanta, which is where I am now as of maybe a couple hours ago. Yeah, is there anything else to say?
No, that's fine for the moment. We're going to go take a couple of circuits around you all now, just to get your experiences. But thanks for that. So what I'd like to do now is just to invite the three of you to reflect relatively briefly on your own experiences of the Ertegun application process, and whether you have any advice that you would like to share with those applying this year. So maybe, Ximena, we should start with you.
Well, okay, all right. Well, thank you, Jonathan and Maria, for that. Something I would recommend people who are like interested in applying to the Ertegun Scholarship Program, mostly when it comes to the essays that you do have to write. We know that you have to write not only one essay, but many essays, because you're most likely not only applying to one school, but maybe more than 2 or 3 or 4 and different other scholarship programs. So what I would say is like to be very like specific with what the Ertegun Scholarship Program essay asks you for. The questions are very clear when it comes to like how to enlarge your knowledge, how can you contribute, and how can you serve your country, your community from your experiences here. And also the last question, that is like how can your personality or your interest can contribute to the growth of the Ertegun community. So I think like those 3 questions are pretty clear. But what is also like very important, I think, and could make a difference between like how the people who do like choose you or not see you as a potential candidate, is to be clear in a way that you are not only addressing to people who are expert in your field, but people who are also in from different backgrounds in both academic and non-academic. Something that helped me a lot was to like show my essays to my mom and my dad, because they're lawyers and they're like, they did not have like any like academic experience or background. So and my friends as well, who did have academic experience and academic backgrounds, and we're also applying like to different schools, and that can give you like a very like clear idea on like which things could be like maybe too much or maybe too less like explain. And because the main idea I think of like all these essays is to like to reach out like these people who are not necessarily like experts in literature, linguistics, history, social studies, gender studies, etc. So like the constant feedback from people who are not necessarily in your like little humanities bubble, it is highly recommended.
Great, thank you very much. And that very, very helpfully reinforces 2 of the key points that Maria made. One, don't waffle. Be very clear about what you're trying to say in your answer to these questions. And yes, talk to others. The members of the board ultimately that will be recommending the scholars, they are not specialists from all the subjects on that. You will be interviewed by a specialist, but the external members of the board are from all walks of life. And so you need also to be able to persuade them about the value of what you're doing and your future plans and your contribution to the community and so on. So thanks very much. That's really, really helpful. Faisal, would you like to reflect next on your experiences?
Yes, sure, Jonathan, thank you. So what I would really suggest for the new applicants is, when you go through your essays, do make sure to reflect on your, not just like your present experiences, reflect on your past experiences, and at the same time, think about what you want to do in the future. So what helped me in my essays is I tried to connect present, past, and future all tied together in my essays, where I particularly talked about some sort of previous experiences that I had that reflected upon, let's say, community aspects. And at the same time, what I was currently doing, back when I was applying, I was part of some communities, one of the communities called like Fiction Writers Guild, where we were part of community which consisted of people who were journalists, who were engineers, doctors, and writers. And we would meet each Saturday of the weekend, and where we would have these sessions where people would talk about their work, the fiction work that they were doing, and then there would be like discussions around it. So you can reflect upon such kind of experiences. That's what I did, because I had some sort of an experience where I actively involved in something that Ertegun is actually doing. So at the same time, I also reflected upon what I wanted to do in future at the Ertegun, in the sense that this is a particular type of event that I want to do at the Ertegun. Or for example, if people are involved in so many different events here, there's always something going on in the Ertegun, and be actively involved in those events, participate, help them with the setup and everything. So what helped me in that sense was going back, as Maria and Jonathan already said, just looking at all the material that is available online, whether that's like Facebook, Instagram, or the website that we have, and check out different kind of events that are taking place in the Ertegun. If that is something that connects to you, or that talks about the aspects that you want to reflect into or maybe become a part of. So you can talk about those kind of experiences in your essays. And at the same time, I would really suggest you to think about your overall experiences of life. It's not just about the academics. So the good thing about the Ertegun essays is that it doesn't have to be so much academic and very much tied to your academic interests, or let's say like research interests. You can talk about the aspects of your application or aspects of your life which are not directly related to your academic life. So this gives you some sort of a space where you can maybe reflect upon your debating experience, your sports experience, or maybe like how you can navigate your life circumstances or how you have been doing that. And at the same time, try to connect it with everything that you have found online. I think that's what helped me out. And this, you are actually one step ahead since you are part of this webinar. And that's a very important step where you come to know about how to apply, what to do and how to do. So I think you'll be fine. And don't stress too much.
Don't stress too much. Very good advice in any situation. Thank you. That's really helpful. And I think one of the points that comes through loud and clear in what you've just said is that, we've said don't waffle, but also don't make your statements so generic or abstract. We're interested in you as individuals. So yes, provide us with evidence. All good arguments are evidence-based. We know that as humanities scholars. Give us examples of things you've done and show us how you will build on that, how that gives you the knowledge and experience to make a successful master's or doctoral student, and certainly to make a successful member of the Ertegun programme. Muni, would you like to reflect briefly on your application experience?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and synthesize what my office mate said. I regret that I'm not there in our office right now. But I would say, yeah, your academic journey and also your journey as an individual is not made in isolation. I did both sociology and undergrad thing that they drove home. So when you're answering these application questions, it's really important to not just yourself as an individual, but the people in the communities around you that really build you into who you are. And I think that's a very important thing to consider, especially with the second question, which was something I had time to think about, because humanities didn't do international relations. A little bit hesitant about that. It was really helpful for me to consider of experiences led to me entering my field, which is gender studies, and what motivates me, what communities, what people, what topics motivated me to do this type of work, and what types of communities and people and topics are going to motivate me to do this beyond my time at Oxford. And so for me, coming from the American South, the humanities is particularly important to me because we're seeing a lot of like book bans in the Southern United States. And for me, within gender studies, I look at literature and history. And so I just thought about like the teachers that I had, the classroom experiences that I had, the book clubs that I had that really helped shape my identity and my politics. And that is the type of thing that I want to do after my Ertegun program. And so just considering the facets of life that made you who you are, even beyond school, because I know that can be such a big thing, is really important to bringing yourself into the application.
Fabulous. That's very powerful. Thank you, Muni. You were breaking it there a little, but we certainly got the absolute gist of of what you said, which is not that these statements shouldn't just be me, although we're encouraging you to talk about yourself, but where you see yourself as part of a community. And as everybody has said already, you know, one of the most important parts of Ertegun is that it is a community of people, of scholars, of ideas, of cultures. So yeah, if you can get that across in your application, then that would be very powerful. Okay, so we're going to go do a quick round again. I'm aware that the clock is ticking and we need to give our viewers time to put their questions. But I would just like to hear the three of you now reflect very briefly on your first term in Ertegun House. Perhaps just identify one thing that has been the most valuable to you over the past few months. Shall we go back to you, Ximena?
Yes, thank you, Jonathan. Well, I would say, and maybe my desk mates too, I hope my desk mates will agree with this, but I think one of the biggest things that the Ertegun Scholarship Program has given to all of us is like the fact that we have a designated space in the university to work at, which is open 24/7, and it is literally located in the city, like in the city center. It's really close from the Humanities department, in between most of the colleges as well. So I think we all know, like as university students, it's very hard to like find a designated place, like space where we can focus and log in when we need the most. And also during exams as well, like the libraries are usually packed, the college libraries are also packed. And at least particularly for me, it's very hard to like study at home because I have like this thing that I do separate a lot, like the place where I live or the place where I study. So having an Ertegun house, which is doesn't only give you like a very comfortable desk where you can like stack up your books and stack up your paperwork and all the things that you have at home that you need to use for work, but also you have like a very nice community of like scholars who are around you, always like willing to discuss the things about your research that you feel like you need to polish on, and not only that, but also like a big like emotional support when you feel like, oh, you know, I feel like burnout or sometimes. So I would say like it is a complete package in that sense that you not only have like a place which is physical, but like also like this sort of like community who's always like holding your back and when you need it most. And we also have a real nice kitchen where you have always lunch like from 1 to 2. So it's like it's great.
Great, thank you. I told you they were obsessed with their desks, but they are
Yeah.
they are immensely valuable. But also, I think that the point that you make there, Ximena, is really important. That most of our students come from outside Oxford, outside the UK. Often, if they're doing an MST, here for a very short time. So actually, just to be able to enter this community and find a home quickly is a really important part of the experience and enables you to give of your best academically, as well as making all sorts of other discoveries. Faisal.
Yes, I can't stress enough upon the desk. Yeah, definitely agree with you, Savannah. But yes, the thing about the Ertegun House is that you immediately get a space where you can have your academic life and at the same time like non-academic life like at the same place, and it balances everything. So for me, it's been wonderful to participate in the weekly seminars, the Wednesday seminars, and after that, the discussions that follow after it, whether you have questions around it, and at the same time you get free lunch. And on top of it, there's always something going on in the Ertegun House where, let's say, if you're working too much upon anything, your essays, or you're thinking about your research, but at the same time, you need to brainstorm your ideas, you can immediately just type a message on the group, hey, I need to talk about something. These are my research ideas. I need someone to talk to. And people will emerge. People will be like, oh, I'm interested in knowing that. Okay, I have these many ideas that probably like reflect upon your research. And at the same time, you can meet people in the kitchen where you can have discussions around anything you want, or teach yourself a new language, a skill. Like I have been taking some piano classes from some of the scholars. So I think the overall community is wonderful where you can be part of it and know so many things outside your own interests. And yeah, so that's what I would say.
Brilliant, thank you. That's a great joy to hear. And because we are all in the humanities, broadly defined, that we have something in common, as you say. So, you know, a philosopher can learn from a musicologist, a linguist can learn from a historian, and so on. That's what happens on the Wednesday seminars, but that's what happens in our life generally here. And Muni, your thoughts on your first term in Ertegun House?
Yeah, so I'm doing an MST. So the time is already ticking so quickly. But I think I would also say a similar thing where it was, it was my first time in the UK. I'd been bouncing around from different places, so it was really important for me to have a sense of like stability and community. And my cohort in my degree program has been great for that, but it has also been so cool to be a part of the Ertegun community. I am very big on the arts and culture, and so I feel like our conversations, even not directly related to my academic work, have been so engaging. Like we've been transferring different book recommendations, and I feel at our trip to the National Theater was also wonderful. And so I think definitely my favorite part of the Ertegun is having a community to land on and just like so much culture to immerse yourself in. We had our Hanukkah celebration earlier last week, but we also celebrated Dia de los Muertos and also got to see like a play. And I think that that is so important when being in a new environment to really be able to learn from other people. And it happens from our desks, it happens in the kitchen, it happens outside of the house. I think everyone is so friendly and eager to kind of exchange those ideas. And I love that so, so much about the Ertegun.
That's great to hear. Thank you. And those two C words that keep cropping up time and time again, community and conversation, those are the two things that I think make Ertegun House so special. Okay, right. So over to you now. It's your time. So Maria, do we have some questions coming in that we can put to our panel of experts?
So we do have one question from Elise. What would you recommend for the interview itself, and any advice in that regard when it comes to answering questions? And I think it should be our scholars, given that they were interviewed, if they have any advice that they'd like to share.
Yeah. So just to be clear, Maria said this earlier on, the interview is not made by people from Ertegun House. The interview is undertaken by the specialists in the faculty, and you are likely to be interviewed by the Director of Graduate Studies in the faculty or the programme to which you've applied, and they'll be talking about in general about your application and also the specific answers to the Ertegun questions. So yeah, would anybody like to share their experience of the interview?
I can go ahead. Yeah. So the thing about the Ertegun interview is you'll probably be surprised because you will receive the invitation for the interview probably like within 24 hours. So it'll which was very unexpected for me because I didn't expect that I will receive the interview call and then tomorrow, the next day, I'll have the interview at the same time. And what really, really helps you out with the interviews is knowing what you have written in your application, especially your Oxford application. So going through it thoroughly and thinking through about what the things that you have mentioned. Sometimes even questions because emerge from very specific words that you have used in your statements. And maybe the interviewer will be like, why have you used this very particular word and why not something else? And how does it relate to your research or anything like that? So what really helps out is go through your application very thoroughly and think about why you wrote all of these things and how do they connect. And I'll say it again, don't stress too much. Well, it has become a cliche at this point, but that really helps. Just be yourself and be confident and trust yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Ximena, Muni, anything else to add? No problem if not, but
I'm not sure if my experience will be the most helpful for this question because my interview was quite informal. We were just having a good chat. They were just kind of like, tell us about your application. Well, first, I didn't even know it was an interview for the Ertegun. They were just like, we want to have an interview. And so I thought that was odd because my program does not require interviews. But our conversation was super informal. They were like, we want to know like why you want to do gender studies, if you were to have the Ertegun Scholarship, what type of events would you like to put on? How would you see yourself contributing to this community? what would you do after this degree? So my interview was much more of like a casual conversation, almost so much so that I almost forgot it was an interview, which I actually kind of like, in the sense that I didn't really feel a lot of like, pressure to present myself as something other than, who I am. I was able to have a very interesting conversation with the co-conveners. So unfortunately, I can't help out with like those types of more formal interviews, but maybe take from what Faisal said about like, take it easy.
But I think that's actually really helpful. And I think, although clearly it's the practice is going to vary from faculty to faculty, on the whole, they are gentle interviews. They are relatively informal because the interviewers want to find out about you. Is exactly what you said, Muni, to give you the opportunity to elaborate on what you've written. Yeah. Anything you'd like to add, Ximena?
Yeah, well, yeah. So, well, for my interview, I come from like quite an interdisciplinary background because I had some experience before in things that were not linguistic necessarily. And something that the interviewers were very interested in were like to like deep dive into like this sort of like, how does my degree in linguistics that maybe like, my interest in like cognitive science and technology and AI, and how is that like, like the program here in like, specifically in phonetics and in phonology here in Oxford was going to like help me to achieve like the Ertegun like mission, because they were very specific with like, we're going to interview for the interview with Ertegun Scholarship. Therefore, we're going to like ask you some questions regarding like your background and your interest and like your motivations to become an Ertegun Scholar. And something that I would highly recommend is like, if you do have some sort of like interdisciplinary background, like do read the things about how is that this interest is like engages with your with your degree and with the work you have been doing, and how is like all of these things can like can push forward the Ertegun mission, which is also like to talk within the humanities and not necessarily from your field. So if you do have like, if you are like Muni, who comes from like a different undergrad like program, or like me, who had like it's a particular undergrad program but like did a lot of things in like in between, do like take advantage of that and in your interview. Of course, it depends on like what the interviewer like wants from you. It varies like based on like the faculty that you are being interviewed with, but that was something that at least for me helped me a lot.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, I think in general, we should say that the interviewers are not there. It's not an inquisition. The interviewers are not there to try and trip you up. They really want to find out more about you, because the way it works is then they will go to the meetings with the board who make the final recommendations, and they will advocate for you. It's their job to sell you to the board, so that they're trying to get as much useful information from you, which they can then use to present you in the best light possible. So please don't be anxious about those interviews. Okay, are there other questions, Maria?
Yes, I just want to say there are two people who have raised their hands. As I've mentioned the Q&A, you could write your questions there because we will address those first, or I can allow you to ask them orally, but after we've completed the questions in the Q&A. So it's your choice. So we do have a question from Arash, who says, I completed my bachelor's and master's degrees in France. My bachelor's grades were low as an international student who had also worked during bachelor at the age of 19, all alone by himself. But I graduated from my master's with distinction according to Oxford requirements from France. Will my bachelor's grades still matter a lot? That is something I think that both Jonathan and I can answer. It is the case, if you get accepted into Oxford, it is your Oxford application. So low BA grades do not necessarily mean that you have no chance of being accepted to Oxford to study for a postgraduate degree, whether a master's or a DPhil. It really will depend. It is true that the Ertegun Scholarship looks for excellence in all previous degrees, but if the master's is exceptional and the faculty feels, because at the end of the day, I need to stress that it is the faculties that make the final selection of the candidates that we will see closer and in more detail, then, you know, it won't really matter what the BA grades are, and I'm sure Jonathan can.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with what Maria said, and if you've done outstandingly well in your masters, then clearly that's a very clear indication of where the direction in which you're moving. And I would also say that, you know, if you know, there are very good reasons why you underperformed in your first degree, then you need to set out those extenuating circumstances, whatever they were, personal circumstances or whatever, that prevented you from giving of your best, and that will of course be taken into account by those assessing the application. Another question.
Yes, Aska asks, do you have any specific advice on answering the question about contributing to one's home country? So I think that is a question for our scholars. Ximena, would you like to start?
Yes. Well, that is a very interesting question, and I really enjoyed a lot elaborating on that one, because when you think about your home country, you think about first the cultural things that, or the things like the cultural things that do tie you to your country, like your identity, your heritage, your background, the way you've been raised in that place, and then also your academics. And here goes again, like, you know, like this, like differentiation between like both your personal life and your academic life. And something that helped me a lot was to ask to reply to the question based on like both sides, like how is that my identity, as I am from Peru, I'm from South America, so I think I am the only South American here besides Veronica, but she's from Mexico. So it was very important for me, like, to showcase like not only the fact that I am Peruvian by itself, but also that Peru is a very it's a very diverse country with a lot of like linguistic diversity and cultural diversity that like people should be should know, but like should know about. So that on one side, and on the other side, like on the academic level, see like how is the Peruvian humanities and the South American or Latin American humanities can enlarge like the can like get found a place in the Ertegun house, because you not only have like Peru as a place that has really good food or really nice landscapes, but also like has a very rich history, like very rich literature, a very complex society, and that it's like always evolving, and it's usually like not well known in this like front of the world. So showcasing like those two places, like those two instances of like my identity as Peruvian were fairly like very helpful, because I did not only like let them know that I'm Peruvian, and I would like to bring some Peruvian Peruvian culture to the house, but also how is that the Peruvian humanities and Peruvian linguistics can contribute to the growth of the linguistic department in Oxford, which is thankfully something that is happening right now. So it is very exciting, like to see how all these things actually like take place in real life. So you always have to like aim forward, I think, if you really want it, to like bring a little bit of your own story and your own community and background to everything that you are doing here in Oxford, because it's something that it's always going to be with you, and it's going to like to shape a lot your experiences here and your interests as well.
Thank you. It's a very important message about mutual learning. It's not just about taking what you have learned from Oxford elsewhere, but bringing who you are into Oxford. As I said at the start, what is, for me, the joy of being the director of the programme is just how broad and rich the community is in terms of the experiences that everyone brings and shares in the house. Faisal, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, so I spoke about it a little bit earlier in the webinar, but I grew up in the southern United States, though I also have how would one say this? I also have ties to Nigeria. And so when I answered this question, I did more focus on my experiences in the southern United States, but I also, like as a person, am interested in extending these ideas beyond the southern United States. So as I mentioned earlier, I grew up in Atlanta, and so in the United States right now, we're seeing quite a crisis in book bans. And so that was something that I was really interested in looking at in undergrad, not in an intellectual academic way, but more in just like, this is something that personally affects me. And I thought about my actual dissertation topic, which is looking at literature and history in Black feminist novels. And so for me, it was really important for me to like get to the nitty-gritty as to why I care about this. And as I mentioned earlier, it came down to these books, Black feminist books, had a very big impact on my self-conception and also the types of things that I was understanding about myself and like the civil rights movement in Atlanta. And so for me, I had a very tangible like phenomenon that I was interested in having some part in solving. And so for this question, I think it might be helpful if you have this in your home context to have a very specific thing that you're looking at or a very specific problem and understanding how you in your own capacities can contribute to this with your Oxford research and also who you are.
Oh dear. I mean, that was very, very helpful advice. But on that note, Muni seems to have frozen, which is a bit sad. Anyway, it was a very clear and powerful message. Faisal, is there anything that you would like to add?
Yes, small points. So what I did with this very particular question is I reflected upon what is the condition of humanities in my home country and how is humanities looked at. Even if you look at the global level currently, so that's what's special about the Ertegun Scholarship as well, that while the other institutions and while the other scholarship funding agencies are cutting funding for humanities, Ertegun continues to support it. So back in Kashmir and even in, which is very common with South Asian societies as well, that it's really, really not appreciated if you end up taking humanities and trying to do your research or let's study around it. So it's very common and prevalent in Kashmir as well, where it's not totally appreciated if you end up taking a humanities subject other than any STEM subject. So I reflect upon that in this very particular essay and how it is very important for me coming from such a place where it's not appreciated to study humanities, but I am interested in that. That means I am contributing to the humanities field all the while it's not being read and widely studied at the same time. So that's something that really helped me with it. And at the same time, I also talked about this very particular type of community that we had formed, a couple of friends, where we discussed about literature, we discussed about translation, we met around coffee houses and tea houses, we went to museums. So this had become a very important part of my life, where being humanities students meant being together and forming this association and talking about things and trying to mitigate things around it and finding solutions. And I also talked about this very particular community called it's called Project Edu Access. So I was part of them and I was like a mentee with them, an informal mentee, like not an official one. So I wanted to contribute to their initiatives by helping other students who are trying to get admissions abroad. So that's what I also reflected upon that. And currently I am supporting few students who are trying to study abroad and trying to do their admissions. So I think I reflected upon all of these experiences that I had and tried to connect them how Ertegun Scholarship is actually doing that in action. And that's something that really helped me. So maybe reflect upon your experiences around humanities.
Thank you so much. There are three very powerful messages there from our scholars, in Peru, in Kashmir, in the American South, and about how they're drawing on their own experiences and how their scholarship is going to inform that, and how they are already, it's very clear, influencing the communities of which they are a part, which is very exciting and rewarding to hear. We've already been going more than an hour, but I don't want to cut us off if we haven't yet answered everybody's questions. Are there any more questions, Maria?
There are no more questions in the chat, and the people who raised their hands have lowered them again. So unless they want to raise them and I can allow them to ask them, I don't see anything else in the chat. So
fine. I mean,
somebody has
a hand. Okay, let's
Okay,
take this as our last question.
So you should be able to unmute now and ask your question.
This is Arthur or Arthur.
Yes.
Hello.
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 Hi. I was just having some difficulties here to ask the question in the Q&A.
Okay. Okay.
But I was interested also about if the scholars can share how are they now contributing to the Ertegun House? How did they answer that question, and how they are fulfilling that? I'm very interested about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think one sentence each from the three of you. What are you doing now in Ertegun House? Ximena.
Well, so far we've been talking a little bit about organizing things in the near future. Something I would really like to do eventually is to like make some sort of like introduction to like Peruvian culture, but it's something that is still on like it's still on my mind, but I haven't like necessarily like put it on like I haven't like set a date nor talked to Maria about it like to organize it properly yet. Because you know like this first term has been like it's very accommodating. We already have like a lot of events going on, but something that is very like is very is really like good about the Ertegun House. They always like motivate you to keep like to organize things eventually within your own. So as like in the near future, it's like I think it's something that we would like to do.
There. That's clear because we're running out of time. Yeah, so
Yeah.
things will happen, and what we like to do is to enable it to happen. Just bear in mind, if you're doing the MST, it's a 9-month program essentially, and your studies come first, so your contributions may be relatively low key or small scale, rather than organizing some big international conference with 200 delegates during your 9 months here may not be advisable. But we're certainly looking forward to your Peruvian cultural event in due course, Ximena. Faisal.
So how I've been associated with the events here is I'm usually present at all the events and also help the scholars with their setup. For example, if somebody wants to do an event around food or cultural event, I'm just being there and helping them with the setup and everything. And also we also organize like movie nights. So I have been at the movie nights. So even your presence matters where you show up at the events. So I think I'll stop here. Yeah,
very good. There's no point putting events on if nobody comes.
and I just want to add that Faisal has been exceptional in helping set up and clear up after events, and it cannot be underestimated how valuable the contribution of scholars, because I am the only staff member here, so everything goes through me in terms of the practical details, and having the support of the scholars is essential.
We're not saying that, professional washing up experience is something you want to put on your application form, but nonetheless, it's a skill that we value highly. And last but not least, Muni.
Yeah, sorry for the technical difficulties I've been having,
okay.
y'all. But briefly, so it was Black History Month in the UK in October. So me and another Black scholar put on a documentary / information night about the Black Panthers in the UK, and that was really great because we got to talk about what Black resistance looks like, and we're also part of the Race and Resistance committee at Torch. So that was just a wonderful night to get to talk a little bit more about Black history, especially a Black history that goes underrepresented in the UK. Yeah.
Thank you. And I can reinforce that. It was a wonderful evening, and Muni and her colleague gave an excellent introduction to the film. We watched this film, and the discussions actually are still echoing out around the house. in various ways. Again, it was an extraordinary evening of sharing of ideas and experiences and challenge as well, which is something that's really important. Great. Well, I think we're going to have to draw it to a close there. Is that okay, Maria?
Yes, unless James, who had raised their hand before, wants to ask anything in case they weren't able to add it in the Q&A, or anybody else who had issues with using the Q&A. If they want to ask a question now, I can unmute them.
I think what we should also say is that we are very happy to answer questions beyond this webinar. All you need to do is to send an email to us, administrator@ertegun.ox.ac.uk. You can find all the information, as we've said before, on the website. But what I would say is do not leave it too late. The university closes between Christmas and New Year. You're very unlikely to get an answer. Both Maria and I will be monitoring our emails from time to time, but bear in mind the closing date is the 7th of January. So if you do have questions, you need to get those in sooner rather than later. Okay, it looks like there are no other questions. So on that note, I think we'll draw it to a close. Huge thanks, of course, to Maria and also to Muni, to Ximena and Faisal for their contributions. Thank you all for your questions and for watching. And well, wherever you are and whatever time zone you're in, may I wish what's left of your day to be a happy one. And goodbye.
Goodbye. And good luck.